Hey there, Film Buds. Welcome back to the Film Buds podcast. I'm your host, Paul.
And I'm Lauren.
Welcome back. I do have to apologize. It has been a little bit of a time. We've been a little bit busy with all sorts of things. You know, life happens. Family coming, going, work. You know, it's...
Etc.
Man, as you know, SOL, you know, at times. And so... Here we are, though, back again.
Ka-chow.
And we brought to you, you know, since it has been some time, we said, why not just make it one thing? You know, let's talk about three things. Let's really cram in as much as we can to make up for the fact that we've been away from y'all for a while. So as a little mea culpa, you know, a little olive branch, if you will, to you, dear listeners. Today is a whole big special 3-part episode. We've got one main review and then 2 little tiny reviews for you, but it's going to be a fun time. Dear, how are you? How is it talking to the listeners again?
It's good. It's good. You know, spring is out and about. You know, as we're chatting right now, the sun is still up and it's a work day. I just don't even know what to do with myself right now. We're listening to these lovely listeners. You heard me, and we're having a great time.
No, I don't disagree. It is nice to finally be in spring proper. I love winter, but at a certain point, you know, it has started to get to be more of a drag.
Yeah,
when the days
so
get so short. Mm-hmm. And it's not even the cold. I think for me, it's really the daylight issue.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I could manage the cold, the lack of daylight at, like, 5 o'clock.
Oh my gosh, it's just terrible.
Starts to suck.
It was just so hard to, you know, like, drive in with, like, the sunrise and then, like, drive home with the sunset. Like, literally, like, the sun would leave the sky and we would be pulling into the driveway.
Yeah, you know, it'd be, like, finally hitting true dark as we arrived.
And just garbage. Just absolute garbage.
So that kind of sucked. But it is now finally spring, and that's great. Since the last time that we were here, you know, we've seen all sorts of stuff, and honestly, like, I've had a great time at the movies lately.
Yeah, we've been having a blast, honestly, driving over to Raleigh and whatnot.
Yeah, holler at the Alamo Raleigh.
Yeah, for being the closest Alamo to us.
That's right. Negative shout out to Alamo Corporate. Why isn't it in Charlotte?
Yes. Yes. These are all of the questions.
I have questions. I need answers.
I mean, there's a defunct theater right near us. You can just put it right there.
Boom. It's got a kitchen.
Bam. We figured it out for you. Get it together.
And it looks like it's in a shopping center that used to have a Blockbuster. So
there you go. It's right up your alley. Come on.
You can even have the video rental stuff there. You know, people will flock to it.
Yeah. And white people live here, so you know that they have money. So come on down.
It's that kind of show. All right.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
But really, I don't care. So...
Fantastic.
But I would really enjoy...
the optics are good.
Not having to go that far. Mm-hmm. So, or, you know, at least put one in Winston-Salem where there is literally a college of film.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense as well.
So, minimum...
But we've got, like, one in the whole state of North Carolina.
Presence. Virginia has 2. Up your presence, Alamo.
Oh, yeah, and one of them is in Winchester.
Winchester. Some rich guy invested big. That's what happened. Some really rich person lives in Winchester.
Oh, yeah.
And he went up there to Alamo and he said, hey.
It's there, George Foreman.
But no, I really enjoy the Alamo franchise, and we have gone there several times, as you will hear in our discussion today. Mm-hmm. 2 out of 3 movies were watched at the Alamo in Raleigh. But no, it's been a good time, and honestly, like, in general, I've had a really good time at the movies for the most part. We'll talk about that again a little bit later when we talk about what we have been watching since our last episode, whenever that was.
Many moons ago.
March. So yeah, it's going to be a good show. But today, as I have said, we've got 3 things for you. I mean, you clicked on it.
You know.
You know.
But we're going to list them out anyway.
Because, duh, some people don't read. That's what I've learned from my job, honestly, is that some people just don't read a damn thing.
That's right. So here you are. Put on your listening ears.
So, if you didn't read the title, this one's for you. We are going to be reviewing Ithaca. We are going to be reviewing Creed 3. And we are going to be reviewing John Wick Chapter 4. So it's going to be one main review on Ithaca, which was a really incredible opportunity thanks to a shout-out that came from the North Carolina Film Critics Association. And then we'll be doing 2 little micro-reviews of recent things in theaters that we've seen that we wanted to talk about, especially since we did Creed and Rocky earlier in the month.
Yes.
So, let's, I guess, go ahead and without any further ado, dive on into it.
All right, let's do it.
So our first film is Ithaca, which is a really interesting film. It's a touring documentary. Mm-hmm. There are some films, a lot of independent films, not some films, pretty much every independent film, if it makes money, it makes its money touring. Mm-hmm. It does contests, it travels around, and, you know, that's the way that it does its whole shtick. With the particular instance of something like Kevin Smith, that's just how he enjoys to go and do some of his releases. He's gone and done, like, multiple road shows, where the way that he has released his movie is not, like, a big theatrical release. He just goes and tours with it. Mm-hmm. And then he puts it on VOD. With the film Ithaca, it's a documentary that came out of, partly Australian production, because they're Australian citizens and it was backed by some of that. And it is a traveling show that has actually been touring since 2021.
Okay, so 2 years?
Mm-hmm. And like I said, we got a shout out in the North Carolina Film Critics Association about this documentary about Julian Assange. Probably one of the most controversial figures that you, have heard about just in some context, but I imagine that it's probably a nebulous one unless you're, really tapped into certain, socio-political feeds, For those that might have a passing knowledge, he's the man that is behind WikiLeaks, And so this email went out, and it said that there was going to be a showing of it at Alamo Drafthouse, and it was going to be a Q&A with the director and John Shipton, Julian Assange's father and brother. And I went, oh, I was fascinated by that sort of opportunity. And I really hadn't heard about this documentary in any context until this email, and I said, well, I have to go.
I mean, obviously.
A documentary about one of the most politically divisive figures, of the modern landscape. His father and brother, the people that made this film, they're going to be there. I have to go. And so I got 2 seats, and we went down to Raleigh. We actually made a whole day of it. We did a double feature of Scream and this movie, but don't worry about that.
It was perfect. Perfect day.
And the film, the premise of the film, officially is Julian Assange remains a remand prisoner at UK's maximum security Belmarsh prison as he appeals an extradition order to the U.S. where he could face 175 years in prison for his role in the release of classified U.S. diplomatic files. It is directed by Ben Lawrence, written by Ben Lawrence, and the main characters of the film are Stella Morris, Julian Assange's fiancée, and the mother of 2 of his children, and John Shipton, his father. The film came out, like I said, technically in 2021, but it is a touring show, and so they go around and they do these Q&As that are also affiliated with, like, groups that raise awareness for Julian Assange's cause and that sort of thing. And this one was put on by some of those groups as well. This screening was put on by groups that are interested in overturning his conviction. And so I guess with all that said, I'll turn it over to you. Dear, what did you think of Ithaca?
I thought that this documentary was very interesting. Aside from the whole experience of, like, sitting next to, like, the one person on our row that was, like, this old man, which was a whole experience in itself. But no, I honestly, I walked into this film not knowing anything about it and walked away learning more. But have I looked up any more about Julian Assange since then? No, not even a little bit. So blindly going into history. Here we go. No, I really liked the documentary. I thought that it was really interesting. Following his dad was nuts. His dad has, like, a 5-year-old child, even though he's, like, 70.
76.
He's 76, and it's, like, a whole point of the film is, like, his love for his daughter. And I just, it raised a lot of questions for me, mainly about this man's personal life. But then also we get to follow his, Julian's fiance, and she seems very interesting. She seems more normal than his father does. But, you know, you love who you love, and she ended up falling in love with this guy. I wish I knew more, really, I guess, about him.
All right, let me ask before we continue further with the film.
Okay,
what,
fantastic.
in literally any context, was your previous understanding, if any, of Julian Assange?
I had never heard of this person before in time-space continuum ever. This is talking
Complete
to you.
blip.
Talking to you about this film when you suggested us going to Raleigh to do this was the very first time that I was hearing about this person that everybody else in the house had a very strong reaction to.
The moment that the name came up.
Yeah, and me, who?
You're over here like Harry Potter, where everyone is talking about either Voldemort or he who must not be named, and you're like, who is this man?
No, literally, you know, I'm new in town. I'm new to these parts. What on earth are you talking about? And so, like, this whole thing about, you know, like this big scandal that happened, it just completely missed me, apparently, entirely. So I'm playing a lot of catch up. And first off, you know, I have to put this out here. This man's name is not a real person's name. Like, if I was writing this book, never would I ever, you know, expect this combination of name to happen. You know, it sounds like a brand in itself. Like cologne or something. I think that this is nuts, though, to get more on track of what this film is about. I think that it's nuts that this man is locked up for I guess what I'm gathering is that he created a website and people put things on that website, and now he's in trouble for the things that were put on the website, because he put his John Hancock on a motherfucker. And then they pulled him out of the embassy, and now he is in maximum security prison of unholy godness, which is just absolute terrible. He at one point hadn't seen like another human being in like the 23 hours of the day or something like that. Like every day he would only see like a person for like a blip of his time.
No, for sure. So he has been like a hacktivist for a long-term period of time, would probably be like one of his sort of key terms. He did, in fact, WikiLeaks is a publication of a sort. Yeah, it's a host for documents that have been brought out by whistleblowers. One of the big things that drew public attention was the release of documents by Chelsea Manning back in 2010 in relation to U.S. operations. And so, but Assange's history of sort of being seen as, you know, a rebellious figure go all the way back to the 90s. He has an old charge in Australia of hacking. And he literally is listed as and I'm not joking about this, a cyberpunk activist. So, you know, this whole idea of privacy enhancing technology as a means of political change and that sort of thing. So he's a real
So he's like Ant-Man. And that's why he's in jail.
No. He is what's the best way to, I guess, put it?
So he's not Robin Hooding here. He's
not necessarily stealing from the rich and giving to the poor, but what he is doing is actively highlighting in pretty much every instance of what is on WikiLeaks, government misdeed.
So he is the
degree,
new Riddler.
I would say it's more akin to a Watergate.
No, I mean, those guys didn't go to jail, though.
No, and that's why it's a big deal.
Well, I mean, I gathered from the film that it's all about, you know, the freedom of speech and what our rights truly are.
Okay,
and then freedom of the press. That's what it is. Freedom of the press.
So with some of that, let's sort of backtrack. And so you come into a film, you have no concept of who he is. Let's start with a simple question. How did you feel the documentary did at explaining who Assange is? Or did you feel that you had to come in with a prior knowledge?
I felt like having a prior knowledge would have been helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's who they're speaking to, is people who, you know, didn't apparently live under a rock when all of this was happening, and has some kind of connection to the context, even if it's just the name, without a face or deeds or anything. It's just the name itself, because gosh darn it, isn't it just so iconic?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that having some prior knowledge of him would have been helpful. Especially, I felt like for a lot of it, I was playing catch up.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is very focused on like the dad, and like the dad's just like day in day out life, while also like campaigning for Julian's freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of it, and then there's like the parts where it's like the interview, and the interview is talking about, you know, how far we are now, and like how are you feeling at this point in it, and like this, it gives like brief moments, I would say, of like history, but like we don't go really too far back, other than like explaining briefly who Julian is, where he's from, what he's known for, and like basically like how we got here, and like the nicest elevator pitch that you could ever get. You know, it was pretty much a paragraph long. But then it's an interesting character study, I would say, and that's the thing that I probably enjoyed the most out of it was watching these people in this just extreme conditions, you know, just try and live a normal life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, watching the dad who has all of these just, you know, we never see like who the mom of this child is. I just assume that he's the kind of like one of those people who've just had like multiple wives throughout the years, to the point where like he probably has, you know, as many children as Nick Cannon does. Who knows?
Yeah.
You know, to the point where he's 76 and has a 5-year-old. You know, it's crazy. But then also has Julian, who's
55.
Who's 55 years old, who's 50 years older than your youngest child. That's you know, that's such a bonkers life to live.
Or, excuse me, 51.
Oh, well, still.
No, but
then,
it's still like a 50-year difference. You
yeah,
know, like
and
the
then,
point still fucking stands.
Yeah, it's still just like a maddening amount of time and space. You know, people think that like me
That's
and my brother
two
are,
generations.
Yeah,
you know?
like Julian could have had kids at 20 years old, and then those kids could have had kids at 20 years old, and those children would be the same age as your daughter.
Yeah.
As their great grandfather.
Yeah.
Their great grandmother is a 5-year-old. Isn't that nuts? Sorry, I digress. But and then we get to go into, you know, the life of his fiance, who's basically known him on the fringe the entire time, which I find fascinating as well. You know, what is
she met the man on the ropes.
You know, like what is the draw? Like, what? I guess, you know, honestly, like what were you expecting? You know,
Victory.
But how long were you willing to wait for it? I know that you fall in love with who you fall in love with, but like, you've had 2 children with a man who you've never been able to live in the same house as, with who's basically been on house arrest.
Yeah, he was not there at the birth. I can't imagine.
He's not been there for any of the active raising of your children. For them, this person is a person in a photo. That's the life that you chose.
And, you know, house visits until recently.
Yeah, of course. We're and this is just criminal treatment, honestly. Like this is inhumane. You know, regardless of how you feel about the person, unless he's fucking Hitler. This is ridiculous. And those are the things that like I really grasped onto about this story, not knowing any of like the true information about it, was just kind of how cruel policy can truly be, you know, for no reason. And the fact is that at the end of the day, he didn't technically do anything wrong. And that's you know, I don't know anything about the man, the myth, the legend, you know, but of personal details. But from what I gathered, you know, at the end of the day, there are people who are being treated way better for doing January 6th stuff. And I think that is like very, very hand in hand with this thing for me. You know, why is he getting like, you know, God tier treatment when those people are getting like gluten-free diets and iPads?
Yeah, he's getting biblical punishment.
Yeah, he might as well be tarred and feathered and like hung in the streets.
Let me tell you, based on, you know, the overall description of condition, Ed Kemper
is currently
and
having
some of those prisoners back in the day when they were like fresh killers had more general freedom in the penitentiary
than this guy.
Than where Julian Assange is currently
No, they're making it
held.
seem like he has like a superpower or something. Like if he's like a Professor Xavier or something, like he's gonna look at a laptop and he's gonna like hack it or something. Like what
it's Juggernaut or Mystique in the mobile prison in X-Men 3 where they're like completely suspended by the body.
Yeah,
constantly
literally.
in motion. You know?
They've locked him up better than we handled COVID. And I'm just so confused as to why.
So, I came into the movie with generally speaking, Kind of no opinion, I would say, on Assange. I did know that he was being held, awaiting extradition, and his most recent condition. I was familiar with the bandying about of his name as, like, a fucking radical. I knew that he was on the run. I knew a lot of these big main media talking points, sort of about Assange. I had never really done any probing further. I had done a little bit of investigation, but, like, nothing deep, to any degree. And generally speaking, I also did think that, like, everything that everyone was balking at Assange for, being involved with, like, any of the leaks that came from WikiLeaks, I, at a certain point, generally hit an opinion that it was good that that information was available. Because, like, it's like the Abu Ghraib, report. It was critical information that we needed to know.
Yeah, you were forcing the people to see it, whether they wanted to or not.
Because ultimately, one of the things that was a really pivotal tool about the thing that ended the Vietnam War was a direct lens on how gruesome and vicious and horrifying the Vietnam War was, from live footage, from, war photography. The lens on Vietnam was a raw one. Mm-hmm. And it's 100% one of the things that brought the Vietnam War to a screeching halt. Amongst many other things. Mm-hmm. With the war in the Middle East, which, started the second, war over there, the second Gulf War. It was started under a false pretense, and it ended up escalating into this thing that became a really entrenched system that has included, multiple accounts of horrible atrocity. And so, in my opinion, since pretty much, I would make the argument, like, right after the early days of the war, we really stopped covering it, in a real brutal way. I remember, like, the early days of the war where you see, like, the nighttime footage of the shelling of Baghdad and that sort of thing. And pretty much all after that until we pull out of Afghanistan. And it's the horrifying side of, people fleeing the Taliban, dropping from the planes. I feel like in a lot of that middle ground space, a lot of the reporting on what happened in the Middle East is very light-footed, shies away from a lot of things. And so generally speaking, whenever I heard about something, at a certain point, whenever I heard about something that came up on WikiLeaks that highlighted some kind of, negative thing that happened in the Middle East, I thought that it was fine to a degree because it was journalism, and it was honest, and it was showing a truth. Mm-hmm. Julian Assange was just sort of like a player in the background for me. It was like Rupert Murdoch. The head of Fox,
Yeah,
he's just a guy with a platform.
Yeah,
the platform is doing the work.
They're
whatever
the wizard,
the hell.
They're the wizard behind the curtain. Who
exactly.
cares?
And we're playing pin the tail on the donkey.
Literally.
Whenever we talk about WikiLeaks, like we're just Julian Assange is just it's the scapegoat sort of name. It's the quick hand. And so for me, coming into this documentary, that was generally a lot of my background on it. I agree with you that it's more of an interesting character study on his father and on his fiancée and the mother of his children than it is a documentary about him.
Yeah, because, like, other than, like, his name being thrown around, like, we literally do not see him.
And to your point, I don't think that we do a good job of grounding the narrative in a history that truly leads to this point. Mm-hmm. And I understand that they wanted to potentially avoid some of that and try and create a human picture. But when we do touch then on some of the political themes of the film, which are very relevant, the fact that he is the only person of everyone involved in the things that he is being charged for. He's the only one being involved. There are multiple other people that could be charged. They're only charging one person. And multiple people have come out and said that essentially this is a real punch in the gut to the Whistleblower Act, right? Because the Whistleblower Act protects the whistleblower. But if we suddenly punish the publisher, then the Whistleblower Act is undercut.
Well, yeah, because then I don't want to, why would I...
I can't publish what the whistleblower says. I'm going to get fucked.
Yeah, well, that's literally what's happening with abortion rights right now. But we're not going to go there. But it's literally like, what, as a whistleblower, why would I want to undermine somebody else in the pursuit of undermining? It feels like counterintuitive. It feels like you're literally like cutting off your notes to spite of your face.
Exactly.
Kind of deal.
And so this is. And the government, we can't stress enough, and they do highlight the fact that this charge came specifically under the Espionage Act of 1917.
1917, guys.
So we're talking about World War I relevant stuff.
Guys, we're still going by the old rules, like that far?
To charge him with espionage, which is the thing that elevated what once was an extradition for a 5-year prison sentence, maybe more, to a 100-plus prison year sentence. They're going to bury him under the jail if he is extradited. And here's the thing. He is an even more embattled figure, because of, some of his background with the sexual misconduct allegations. But the problem is, now Julian Assange, because people have inflated him and conflated him with this issue, you've got a person who maybe is a bad person at times. I'll say this, he's a complicated figure. Mm-hmm. You have a complicated figure who has maybe done misdeed, who is now also wrapped up in this entire issue whereby he's almost the perfect scapegoat. Do you really want to let the morally ambiguous man off the hook? He's almost a perfect scapegoat for this kind of treatment, for this kind of punishment, for this kind of point-making. Because he isn't a martyr. He isn't a Martin Luther King. He isn't this sort of squeaky clean image that people have. People have a very shaped opinion of who he is, and so to a degree, he is this sort of person. And what I thought was really interesting about the movie is that they did choose to dance around a lot of that. And it did humanize him, but I'm not sure that it brought the importance and the power of some of the struggle to the situation.
Well, I think that's really interesting as well, folding in all of the parts of who he is as a person. Let's say that, if he's not good, he's not bad, he's just neutral. If we're willing to say that, like, this person who is, like, just, like, an person, just, like, on the books, who has done a lot of good things and, like, a lot of bad things, just neutral.
They balance out.
Yeah. But we're willing to go, hand over fist to make a point here. But, like, people literally with guns went into our capital.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I guess because somebody is on their side, they're not public enemy number one. But because nobody apparently is on Julian's side, like, this is the easiest thing to do. Mm-hmm. Which is just so perplexing to me.
I really wish that people... Here's the thing. Even if I wished this documentary had given more context, even if I wished that this documentary had dug a little deeper, had gone certain other directions. Here's what I will say ultimately at the end of the day. It is a really powerful portrayal of, to a degree, what it is like to live with, not, to a degree, exactly what it is like to live with an incarcerated person.
Yeah, on maximum scale,
And I think that it truly, if anything, it draws attention to Julian's underlying cause, for sure, which is truth, freedom of media, all of that. But to a certain degree, I almost think that this movie is a better documentary about injustice of the incarceral system.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. No, it drove me nuts hearing all of the absolute batshit things that were happening to him. And, like, his family just having to say it, like, over fucking toast.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this was just a normal day for them, just being like, yeah,
Julian
they
only got 30 minutes outside today.
They've put him on suicide watch.
Mm-hmm.
It's just an average Monday for us here in England or wherever the hell they live. It's just, what do you mean?
No, it's a real gut punch. And it reminds me of, there's a story of, and I can't remember the prisoner's name, but he was a man, he alleged his false conviction, all the way up until the end, and right around the time that he was potentially going to be, overturned, he died in prison.
Like, just so cruel. And then we have some people, in with the silver spoons shoved down their goddamn throats, getting to walk out with fancy bracelets, at the bare minimum, but they could just pay their bail and be home free.
And
how does that make, them any better?
There's nothing about the system that is about reform.
No.
There's nothing about the system. It is when it is truly, especially when it is truly weaponized to its fullest, it is a form of making a point.
It's hell.
And it's so that way other people look and go,
I don't want that. I'm going to straighten up and fly right so that way I don't want to be that.
Not to spoil the documentary, I don't know if you'll ever get the chance to see it. Like, I don't know if it'll ever get beyond the point of touring shows. If you get the chance to see it, please do see it.
Yes.
But the end of the documentary, or not the end of the documentary, but a part of the documentary, the UN officially convened on his condition at Belmarsh.
Oh.
Well, and it's the guy who talks about how he came into it skeptical.
Mm-hmm.
Of how Julian, this character that he had been shown.
Yeah, this myth.
And he talks about in the documentary how he had to set aside his notion of who Julian was and look at Julian's conditions. And the ultimate step away was that they were a civil rights violation.
Yes.
That they were criminal.
Yes.
And so a UN committee has convened and condemned the way that he is currently being treated. And so again, if this documentary is a great portrait of anything, I'm not sure it's some of the things that the man stands for, so much as it is a branding of how punitive the system can be.
And really, how does this make us any different than the past that we love to tote so much? How does this make us any different than what happened during the Holocaust? What on earth makes this any different than the treatment of Japanese Americans? What? It doesn't. There's no justifying right for treating anybody like this.
Solitary confinement is proven to cause active mental harm to the people subjected to it. Long-term solitary confinement is a form of torture.
Yes.
Solitary confinement for a night after a fight, that's one thing. Or if you're having an episode, that's one thing. But long-term solitary confinement is a form of torture. It is punitive, and it is actively harmful to the people that end up undergoing that experience.
Yes.
Because no human can exist in isolation. If you don't believe me, strip away everything that you have. Go to the only room in your house that has a light but no windows. You know, tuck your phone away, everything. And get someone that you love to sit outside and lock you in that closet or whatever the hell.
And put food out and open the door so you can grab it and don't get to see anybody and just close that right back up.
And tell me how long you go.
Yeah, no, it sounds wonderful. It's maddening. It's
And
absolutely
so,
maddening.
Also, though, if I think that I truly had to cite the documentary for a fault, and I don't necessarily blame the fault because it is a human fault. One of the other reasons that it does have to hold back on, I think, a certain journey or a certain trajectory about who Julian is ultimately the fact that the father is unwilling to interrogate his own past and his own relationship with Julian.
Well, yeah, you know, I think that that's completely fair. Seeing how, like, just truly...
When he gets confronted about even the idea of talking about what their past used to be, that man barks at the idea.
Yeah,
like,
because, well, also the fact that, like, you know, we get blips of it, you know, we know for a fact that Julian's father was not there for, like...
For whatever reason, for whatever context...
90% of Julian's life.
Yeah, they were not involved together. At all. Period. The end.
Like, it's why I figured that that's why they don't have the same last name.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like... But that's also, you know, that to me explains why this is also the man that has a 5-year-old child at 76 years old. You know, all of these things check out for me.
But also, to a degree, I guess, perhaps that explains why Julian even has children in this...
crazy situation, you know?
For him, what is it?
Oh my god. We can speculate.
We can. This is a little speculative, but I think that the documentary where, because John does refuse to interrogate and go further into the past between he and Julian, and how that might relate to the future and the present. You know, he likes to act like they're unrelated.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sorry, but there's absolutely zero way.
Oh, God. No. Yeah, no. Just truly...
But you get something in the blank spaces. If you read between
in
the
the
lines...
silence. There's a lot. There is a lot in the unspoken space.
There's a lot of context in between these points.
Yes. His, you know, the choices that are made in this film are truly fascinating. And they're so subtle as well. You know, there's a lot of things that totally are just something that we ended up catching on film. You know,
Yeah.
which was like this interview moment that is they could have taken that out.
Yeah.
But they chose to show the honesty, the truth of who these people are, even through this filtered lens.
Mm-hmm. No, I completely agree. So if you had to rate it out of 5, what would you give Ithaca?
I'm gonna give Ithaca a 3. I'm gonna give Ithaca a 3.
Okay.
I think that I really enjoyed this documentary for what it was. That's, you know, always what you go into a documentary and to experience, you know, a window into life. And at the end of the day, that's exactly what this was. It was not what I was expecting. It was way more dramatic. It was almost like a modern day soap opera, and I was hooked watching it. But also, I felt like it was missing for me, a lot of information that would have helped ground me in the feeling, the emotional, impact of what was going on for these people.
The scene's about emotionality.
And I just hated the like 5 seconds blip back to his childhood, not even his like college time, like when he started this whole thing. It's like here we are, and I just, for me, I felt like that was just almost like worse. You might as well have just not told me anything. Yeah, I think that I'm gonna give Ithaca a 3.
I think that that's fair. I'm going to give it, I'm going to give it a 3.5.
Okay.
I think that Ithaca is primarily setting out to do what I think it does best, which is highlight how inhumane his treatment is, how ridiculous the espionage charge. Actually, no, I'm going to pull back on that part. What I think it does best is I think that it highlights how inhumane his treatment is, how there is definitely greater abuses at play. And I think that it does, again, create a very real portrayal of, like I said, the punitive nature of the justice system at its worst.
Yes. And that's like not the thesis statement of the film.
Where I think that it gets muddy is in truly overall landing some of the threat to publications, because I don't know that they truly ground, because we're missing some context at the beginning of the story, and we don't necessarily really dive deep into it. We do this Cliff Notes version.
Yeah.
And so I think that because of that, it does end up keeping some of the documentary from... It almost could have been a series, or a 2-parter story. But I think that it was critical to have some of that context that they were probably rightfully certain would also not get them platformed. Ultimately, though, I recommend the hell out of it. And I loved it. Even though I think that it has flaws, and I don't think that it's perfect, it was very emotionally effective.
Yeah. No, for sure. I thought that this was, I was heartbroken at the end of this thing, that they, we were still almost in, like, where we started, we watched this whole entire documentary, and that's the life of documentaries, is because it is real life. You don't get to, pick at the right chords that'll make your
if you're
outcome
left
happen.
with the ending, whatever the ending is, if the ending is shit, congratulations, like, that's the ending of the story.
Yeah, and this one was kind of shitty, it was like, we're still fighting the good fight.
Wormwood.
Yeah, no, that documentary that you showed to my parents, about the twins.
Yeah, 3 Identical Strangers, the triplets.
Yeah. That one was right at the end there, really biting.
It starts so playful, so sweet, so summer, and it ends so winter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you realize that it is a really twisted thing that they were doing back in those days. But that's kind of how, this feels, I think that it hits that right, like, Jesus, we're still doing this, we're 3 years later, and we're still we're nowhere closer. You would hope in an ideal, I guess, scenario that some leverage, some leeway would happen here. I think that, to your point, yes, it does a very good job of letting you sit in that.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I'll never be an apologist, for any of Julian Assange's legitimate misdeeds. But at the end of the day, if you root for, someone to be... People can be in prison, rightfully so. But if you root for the active mistreatment of a prisoner, that's no good.
Yeah.
And he is, at the very best, a gray character.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair,
But that does not mean that he is not devoid of, humanity and human treatment. And also, the Espionage Act being deployed in this way is diabolical.
Oh, yeah, this is supervillain shit right here. This is real life.
And truly, any prisoner facing any charge facing inhumane treatment is, as I just said, inhumane.
Inhuman.
And so that's sort of my final thoughts on Ithaca. Good movie. Truly, if you can see it, see it. Come to it with as open a mind as you can. I know that Julian Assange is not a white knight to root for, but I think the documentary creates a compelling picture.
Yeah. And if anything, it's a really interesting character study.
Again, minimum, it's a fascinating character study on a father and son relationship and its strange effects.
Oh, yeah. And just seeing the difference, honestly, seeing the man on the film
Mm-hmm.
and then seeing him in person.
Yeah.
After this time had passed as well, and just like the toll I'm sure that this entire thing takes on him. Like he had aged even more. I was shocked to see this like crumbling figure.
He's a little tough looking at 51 right now. He's not a healthy looking 51.
Oh, I'm his dad.
Oh, shit, sorry.
No, you're okay. I mean, yes, no, seeing a current picture of Julian was hard.
Damn, did I really misread who the hell you were talking
No,
about?
I meant literally seeing like his father in person, after the film, how much his character had shifted, had sunken. Almost.
Oh my god. So we do have to briefly, before we do our micro review, we do have to briefly talk about the Q&A.
The Q&A.
So we were the youngest people, as said, at that Q&A.
Yeah.
One of the people to speak was a man named Roy, I believe, who has been involved with the state, the government. He was former CIA. And, he's a part of the fight. He's a long-standing member, and so he got to make sort of more of a comment than a question. However, the second person to speak was then a woman who bless her, in the truest of good nature intention, asked these people to sing a song for Julian.
And after the description of his father that I just gave, of the man that was sinking into the stage and was just at a certain point just rambling, she told this man to sing.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. It was a wonderfully awkward moment to experience in person.
So let me tell you, if you ever find yourself with an opportunity to go to a Q&A and you go, I don't know, it sounds like it might be boring, please go. Because it's important, and clearly the only people going to them are old.
Oh, and I do not want to undersell how old these people were. We are...
When I say I am 30, I am 30 even.
30 years old. And these people were 85...
to 65.
Of just way older than us. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the people who had things to say were of the 85 category.
Yeah. So...
It's amazing.
These things may not necessarily always sound, I guess, the most engaging. But they're really interesting opportunities. They are worth your time. And if you engage with the film and meditate with the film, by the time you hit the Q&A, you also might have a question that is better than asking someone to sing.
That's the best way to end this. That was beautiful.
And so with that said, I now want to move on to our final part of the night, which is a micro review of John Wick Chapter 4 and Creed 3.
Okay.
I have a great plan for it.
Okay, fantastic. Tell me your
Each
plan.
person will have 5 minutes to speak on each film.
Oh, okay.
So we will do 10 minutes per film. I'm sorry, dear listener. It's an additional 20 minutes from here. But that's kind of my idea.
Okay.
So, since we did Ithaca, do we want to now do Creed 3 or John Wick Chapter 4?
Let's leave John Wick for last.
Okay. Let's do Creed 3. Since you started, I guess that I will do this one first. Just beforehand, I will still give it a little bit of the Film Buds treatment.
Okay.
This is Creed 3. It was released this year, earlier this month. The premise is Adonis has been thriving in both his career and family life, but when a childhood friend and former boxing prodigy resurfaces, the face-off is more than just a fight.
Beautiful.
It is directed by Michael B. Jordan. It is written by Keegan Coogler, Zach Balin, and Ryan Coogler. And it stars Michael B. Jordan, Tessa Thompson, Felicia Rashad, Mila Davis-Kent, and the now currently embattled Jonathan Majors. So, with that said, I suppose that I shall begin with the disclaimer, of course, that I cannot further comment at this particular moment on anything related to Jonathan Majors. We, of course, here at the Film Buds always stand with the victims, and whatever comes will come, and the entire thing is an absolute tragedy, because humans should be good to humans. So, with that said, let's jump into Creed 3.
Woo!
Ding, ding, ding. I fucking love the Creed movies.
Yeah!
I love the Rocky movies. I love movies, and good art makes me cry. Good art, literally, it doesn't have to be sad. If it's just good enough in a particular moment, I'll just cry. Because I'll be like, God damn, this is some good-ass art. And that hits me all the time with the Creed franchise. But they truly do always wring their emotional moments to the absolute best, and I think that is something that goes back to the original Rocky films. You know, even the first Rocky with the parts that are a little rocky, when it really wants to hit an emotional note, it hits it. You know, it hits it like a drum. And I think the Creed movies are beautiful movies. I love Adonis Creed's character. I love Michael B. Jordan's performance. I love his chemistry with Tessa Thompson. This is one of my favorite Tessa Thompson roles. This is a great chance for Felicia Rashad. And I adore the entire Creed franchise. Creed 3, I came into it a little bit nervous. I will be frank about that, because even though there were a lot of positive reviews and that sort of thing, actor-directors are tough, and acting and directing at the same time is tougher. And then you're making it an action-oriented part, where you're going to be boxing and this sort of thing. But I think that he does the smart thing of couching his boxing toward the end of the movie, so that way he can focus on only really having to direct his emotional performance for a large part of the film.
That's interesting.
Because you're bouncing back between your daily and your filming. And so then he really got to, honestly, just sort of pass off, I think, a lot of the filming of the action stuff to the people that had already plotted out the action.
Okay.
And I think that that's one of the strengths of the movies. It is visually more interesting than Creed 2. Still not as visually engaging all the time as Creed 1. Ryan Coogler just knows how to move a fucking camera around. Jordan, though, knows how to shoot a fight better than Creed 2. Mm-hmm. And that's definitely because of some of the anime influence, which I thought was absolutely breathtaking in the film, not just in the visuals, but also in the narrative. And he didn't do it in an inauthentic, hokey, cheesy way of like, oh, it's an anime. But, like, you can see it and you can feel it and it's there. And I think that that's really one of the strong points of the movie. Majors' villain is astounding. When he first gets into the ring and he is attacking the one guy and he just zeroes in on the arm as his target, I was like, this is a fucking villain. You know, I was swept up in how truly wicked he felt, in a way that struck me similar to Thanos, to Darth Vader. He was a bad guy. You know, he was the black hat of the fight. And I think that the performance grounded that fully. He felt like a wholly rounded person. I adore that this movie, again, didn't do sequelitis of dropping off any particular plot points. They picked them up and they carried them further. And the music is bitchin' as always. Also, of course, the final fight, you know, our climactic fight, is one of the most visually inventive, creative, exciting, cool, wild, surreal things that has ever been put into a sports movie ever. And everyone looked hot. Everyone looked good. And you know me, if people look sexy on film with dramatic lighting, I'm there for it. I really can't recommend Creed 3 enough. Definitely dad approved. My father-in-law loved it. My father-in-law walked out with a smile on his face and going, that was a good movie. And so for him, it was perfect.
That was a great film. Top 10.
And so it's father approved. I really definitely do recommend seeing it on as big a screen as you possibly can, because some of those shots just are absolutely unbelievable. And it brought me to tears multiple times, and that is my time.
Woo! 1 second to spare.
All right. You do not have to take the full 5 minutes if you do not want to.
Okay.
But it is a 5-minute window.
We'll see where the wind takes me.
All right. And we shall reset the time. And now, dear, your thoughts on Creed 3.
I really enjoyed this movie a lot. I think that for me, Creed 1 is probably still my favorite.
Fair.
of the Creed franchise, but this one is definitely the second runner up. I agree with what you said about actor directors. It can be very distracting to make yourself the lead person in a film and also direct yourself. It's next to impossible, because frankly, you will have to be running back and forth to check out the shots each time, and that's going to take you out unless you're going to do like 50 takes or something and then be like, all right, let me see what I did later.
But then, God forbid, you have to do another take.
You know, like, literally, you know. So I completely agree. This could have been a disaster, but I think that I also agree with what you said, the fact that he brought himself out of the film by making himself, you know, in retirement. He was allowed to really focus on you know, on the other components of the film, you know. The idea of creating a legacy of his own as well, you know, with this new fighter, and then the bringing up of the past, you know, this trudging up of this unhealed wound that and this, I think that this franchise really does a great job at looking at male trauma. And maybe that's controversy, I don't know. But I think that this film does a lot of interesting things when it comes to, because our main characters are always men. And so, you know, we have to have our act breaks in the certain form of that we have come accustomed to with watching films. And I think that, You know, we still have to have our act breakup and whatnot, and our drama that's ensued in there. And I think that when we focus it not on a female perspective, we have to change what is the things that become dramatic, and the ways that it becomes dramatic. And I love the fact that at the end of this film we got two men who were delving into the things that were toxic about their past in a negative light, and it was bringing out the worst parts of them, and
talks about an unresolved issue that they had with each other.
Yeah, exactly. You know, this, and the fact that I loved the, you know, Tessa Thompson's character over here as like the loving wife, like really like actively looking at Adonis and being like, get your head out of your ass and tell me what's wrong. If you don't want to tell me, and that is fine, but you have to tell somebody, because we can't live like this anymore, because we are on the edge. And I think that that's great. I think that those are great stakes, because also it is showing that not only is our villain character, you know, having a hard time doing bad things, but also our hero is also, you know, having a negative reaction to what's going on, that we all have these goods and these bads in us. And the fact that at the end they end up fighting it out, you know, they fight out their trauma, but then they have this nice chat at the end where it's like something that you don't get to see on film very often from male characters is a willingness to have a heart as well in there, especially when it comes to the portrayals that we have of black men. You know, we have it as very, very hard. And I think that this does a really good job of dancing on both lines of what that is, you know, what it means to be the hard black man, but also to be the family man as well, and to balance these two different worlds. This is Tessa Thompson's best performance in the franchise. She is killing it in this film. She is fantastic. It's because of the fact that she is going through her own emotional journey this entire film, like so back burner to what Adonis is going through, but that's because of the fact that we are stuck in his perspective the entire time, and he is not seeing his wife, and so therefore we are not either. And then he confronts her with this moment of being like, oh, you know, you it comes so easy to you, and she gets to, you'd be like, no, it doesn't. You just aren't seeing what I am doing to cope with the changes that are happening in my life. And I think that that's probably for me the strengths of this film are the emotional journey of these characters that we've come so far with, and the fact that, you know, even though Adonis is our lead, he still has so much more to learn from not only, you know, boxing, but also you know, his family and from himself. And I truly enjoyed the hell out of this film. I would highly recommend watching it, even if you're not into sports or whatever.
Time. Excellent job, dear. 3 seconds to spare.
Thank you.
All right. Next up. Also, actually, I will add one other thing. Creed 1 is also, I agree, my favorite. But I also agree with you about, like, this, you know, unpacking this sort of toxic perspective, you know, and that sort of thing. And, you know, her coming and telling him to pull it together, brings it to very personal stakes, and it also heightens the villain as an influence, because now he's affecting the home life.
Exactly.
You know, also, I will say this as just one more last thing, and I did not miss Rocky. I was very glad with where we left him at the end of 2.
Yes, that's a great
And I
point.
was curious if I would miss him, and at the end of the day, I was really happy knowing that he was off, and being happy.
Yeah, and we had fully passed the torch on to Adonis.
I was truly... It made me feel good.
Yeah. Honestly, like, what they're doing with the new Creed, with Rocky's legacy, baby, it's perfect. It's perfect. I have no notes for this.
More like this.
Yeah, exactly. With every franchise that you want to bring back.
More like this.
The story moving forward.
Yes. Momentum.
Yes.
So with that said, now let's move into John Wick Chapter 4. We shall be doing the same thing. John Wick Chapter 4 came out this last weekend. It was directed by Chad Stileski. It is written by Shay Hatton, Michael Finch, and Derek Kolstad. The premise is John Wick uncovers a path to defeating the High Table. But before he can earn his freedom, Wick must face off against a new enemy with powerful alliances across the globe and forces that turn old friends into foes. And it stars Keanu Reeves, Lawrence Fishburne, Clancy Brown, Ian McShane, Marco Zaror, Bill Skarsgård, Donnie Yen, Hiroyuki Sanada, Rina Sawayama, Shamir Anderson, and the late, the great, the one, the only, Lance Reddick. And with that said, dear, it's now your 5 minutes.
Okay.
A la cuisine!
Fantastic. Woo! What to say about John Wick 4? I walked into this film really excited. I was like, oh yeah, we're gonna go and do it all again, and it's gonna be great. And I walked out of this film going, wow, we did it all again, and it was pretty mid. I feel the exactly opposite about this film that I felt about Creed 3. I felt like Creed 3 had a lot of, like, great emotional impact. I felt like this movie had literally none. I felt like, you know, where Creed was like, you know, oh, we're gonna leave the action for these pivotal points. This movie was gangbangers. It was literally, like, just constant, just throwing it at me at the point where my eyes were physically tired of watching people die, and I just wanted a break for a second that was something more than watching a character come onto screen for 5 minutes,
talk about some rule,
and then leave and never come back again. And then we did that so many times over, where I was like, oh, this is an interesting character plot. Oh, there they go. Oh, look at this over here. It was like going through a video game where I was the protagonist that doesn't speak. And I had levels. And once those levels were done, they were done. And that was it. And it made, you know, the point where we get to, you know, at the end of this film with John just mean absolutely nothing. Because I couldn't follow the journey. Because instead of having, you know, active people talking about what's going on in this weird, complicated world that they've built, you know, they just forced me to go, you should have did your homework and written down all of the rules of the Watchmen crew, or whatever the hell they're called, you know, and come into this ready for Keanu to grunt and shoot people like a good action hero do. And we like tried talking to your parents about it, and like for me, I just don't get it. I don't get the appeal, you know? Like, I felt like there was so much breath between actual scenes. Like, you could have gone to the bathroom, you know, gotten popcorn, gotten another beer, and come back, and that action scene would have still not ended. So I guess, you know, this is another dad-approved film. Of a different caliber, though. You know, this is all of the action, none of the drama. We even bring back his wife as like a very throwaway, like, I want to be a good husband. We don't even have new flashbacks. We are still, you know, just wash and repeat on the same flashbacks of that chick from Blue Bloods who did that flashback like 10 years ago, or whenever the first John Wick film was, and never had to come back again. They have no chemistry, they never have, and they keep playing this action hero violin, you know? Like, this is like, you know, in Westworld, where they all have cornerstones. They've got their thing that they fight for, the thing that drives their entire life. That's his wife. She's not real. She's just an implanted memory. We've seen the footage, you know, ad nauseum. And just, I felt like this was the worst of them. And I felt like this was the worst Keanu I've seen in a really long time. But boy, howdy did it have some killing in it. It had some great kills in it. It had so many great kills in it, I can't even give you a specific one at this moment.
If that's all you have, that's
Oh
fine.
yeah. Oh yeah. No, I'm good. I think
Okay.
I've railed it enough.
Okay. All right. Before I actually want to talk about this movie, I actually want to talk about some other movies. First of all, action movies typically have this tradition of the first movie being this incredible, awesome, kick-ass thing whereby at the time that you hit the end of it, you're wondering what the fuck happened to that character that I fell in love with. And John Wick has fallen prey to that. So I guess congratulations, you're just like every other action franchise. Whereby once upon a time you were something and then you stopped being something. You look at Die Hard. The first Die Hard, it's a man. It's a man who runs across glass and has cut up feet. And, you know, he's fighting against a horde of 12, and it's high stakes, and it's personal stakes, because at the end of it, what's at stake? His marriage. It's not actually a life and death thing. It's his marriage that's at stake. He has to succeed here because he has to save his marriage.
Yes.
So then you look at Rambo, you know, the first Rambo movie, he's a Vietnam vet, and he's homeless, and he's being terrorized by the police. You look at the first Terminator movie, Terminator's the bad guy. So often, we do this thing of introduce them as X, and then shit happens in between Y and Z, and by the end of it, it's no longer anything like the character that you know. For me, that's John Wick right now. There was this world that had rules, but they were pretty simple. They were maybe a little broad, but they were simple. There's a hotel. There's a contract system. You don't kill on hotel ground. And that's kind of it.
Yeah.
And then they started going into more and more and more lore and this world building stuff that at a certain point I really profoundly stopped giving any kind of rat shit about. Because they were making it up as they went, and you could feel it. It was pasted on, and it started with the bad Italian in America, John. And it's just gotten worse ever since. And we went from the bad Italian to now Bill Skarsgård doing the worst French accent that you ever did fucking hear.
What French accent?
And ultimately, I agree with you. Like, I went nose blind to the action, and I love action. I adore action. You know me. Love me a good action movie. Mission Impossible Fallout, incredible experience cinematically. It's not that it's a long movie. We saw Avatar, The Way of Water, 2 times in theaters.
Yeah, on uncomfortable chairs.
And every bit of that movie is far more impactful. Literally every single drop of that movie is far more impactful.
And all of the action is memorable.
Top Gun Maverick, far more memorable film.
Yeah.
This movie truly hits a point of just going nose blind to it. We go in the final climactic moment from a street fight to a building fight to a street chase to the Arc de Triomphe circus to stairs to falling downstairs to fighting back upstairs. And literally I hit a point where I knew that we were hitting the end of the film. And when I realized that we had the staircase to go to get to the end of the movie, I was like, God damn it, we've got another action sequence. And I was furious that we had more action before the final fight. One of the reasons that samurai movies are really good is they don't fuck about.
Yeah, no, you slice somebody, they're dead. We move on.
And we have scenes between them. Mm-hmm. And this movie has, my mom did the math, a death a minute. For 2 hours, 45 minutes. That's how much fucking action happens in this movie. And I love action, but you can drown in it. And if you want a great example of a revenge story that plays out better than this shit, look at fucking Kill Bill.
Yes.
Where we set up the stakes if it's a simple revenge movie, and then at the end of it, we reveal that her revenge plot is entirely different now. And the problem is, John's revenge plot got fucking lost. John is no longer a character anymore in any meaningful way. And so when we hit the end of this movie, what happens to John doesn't matter anymore, because who is he anymore? To your point, they talk about Helen. Fuck her.
Literally.
She doesn't matter. Them trying to tack on that any of this shit is about his wife anymore is honestly fucking laughable. John likes killing, and if that's the point of the movie, I'm not sure if they missed it, or if I missed it, or what the fuck happened.
Woo! 1 second to spare. I just want to add really quick.
Sure.
You mentioned, like, after we watched this film that it reminded you of playing video games in the sense of, like, the slog of trying to, like, get through hordes on hordes of enemies. And that's exactly what this was. They were faceless, nameless hordes of enemies.
And not in a good way.
No, not in a good way.
Because the good way version of that is watching the let's put some bang on it fucking whalers get fucked.
Yeah, because they had faces and we had emotional responses to
They were
their deaths.
bad dudes.
Exactly. We knew who we were rooting for. This was just like, this was John versus a bunch of people in black suits.
Yeah, this sucked.
Yeah.
And also, everyone essentially had John Wick powers. So it was also even harder to care, and this is also where I started to get concerned back in movie 2 when they introduced the bulletproof suits. I was like, this is stupid. I was like, this is actively fucking stupid. You were painting yourself into a corner. That was the first thought that ran through my head was, congratulations, you have painted yourself into a fucking corner.
Nope, and they did it. And they walked right on in and they sat right down.
So, no. Generally speaking, in my opinion, I can't recommend John Wick 4. Go and see Creed 3 instead.
Go and see Creed 3 instead, indeed. Honestly, of the films that we have reviewed that you can watch in theaters right now,
go and see Creed 3.
Go and see Creed 3.
I can't in good consciousness recommend John Wick 4. I'm sorry, I really can't. I truly did not like it.
Yeah, no, I've got opinions.
It's bad.
Yes, to put it quite bluntly, it is bad. It is a bad film.
Sorry, I don't understand these people that are giving it, like, masterclass ratings. I really, profoundly, from the bottom of my stomach, hear me.
I mean...
do not fucking get it.
No, they really enjoyed watching Lawrence Fishburne run through the sewers, being like, doing his best fucking audition for Shakespeare.
Christ, I wish I could turn off my brain like that.
You know, they said, God, look at him act.
Keanu Reeves said 380 words. It's about 40 grand a word. You know what? Actually, go and watch that fucking movie.
No, stop it.
And then go and tell me if it was worth 40 grand a word from Keanu.
No, I said that he was a grunting protagonist. And that's pretty much all he did. Exactly. He's basically just become Clint Eastwood.
And I love Keanu, and he needs to, much like Tom Cruise, once he's finally done with action movies, they both need to go and do, like, actual character work again.
Yeah, both of you need to do Wes Anderson. Do something fucking weird.
Go forth. Vanish, my child. But, I guess with all that said, the only other stuff that we have seen since then, Scream 6, good, liked it more than 5, Cream. What else have we seen since then?
Things.
Honestly, we haven't watched terribly much.
No, we've been going through Futurama currently. That's
excellent stuff. I've never seen it.
Yeah, no, this is a person who's watched it thousands of times with a person who's watching it for the first time. This is fun. This is a fun reversal for us. Yeah,
we've never really done something like this, something that you're, like, hyper familiar with, something that I have nothing to grab onto.
No, it's great.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm fighting quoting this thing so hard so that way I can give you, like, an authentic experience.
I appreciate it. I truly do.
You know, but you know me. Like, I'll sing a whole musical song. It don't matter.
Beyond that, I don't have really anything else that I have to say to y'all. Fuck Funko.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Stop buying Mondo.
Aw. Yeah.
Welcome to Vice Press.
Yeah.
Go and find other places as well. Go and find individual artists. Commission work. Do insane shit. But at the end of the day, fuck Funko. Don't buy a pop. And unfortunately, don't buy another Mondo product. You know why? Because they decided that film shit doesn't matter. So...
Are you going to actually explain to the people what happened, or are you just going to tell them that?
They laid off, like, half the staff and destroyed $36 million worth of hard merchandise.
There we go, people. There we go.
Including 2 of the co-founders of Mondo.
Yeah.
So there you have it. And that's all that I have for y'all.
Fantastic.
Dear, what about you?
I'm really enjoying watching Futurama. That's what I've got for the people. Have a good one. Enjoy the spring through all the allergies if you can muster it. And we'll see you next time here on the Film Buds. Ka-chow.
Bye.